Woods Farm here. Well, today's the big day. Got the 354 International in the shop, and I'm going to be attempting to do the head gasket. Late last summer I noticed that there was a bit of coolant in the oil. I thought it might be kind of a fluke. I changed the oil. It didn't seem to come back for like a month or so. It was kind of in the middle of the winter there where I noticed it had oil, or had coolant in the oil again. So I put one of those magic potions in the radiator to try to, it's supposed to apparently, seal up any head gasket leaks. Changed the oil. Ran it a few times. I thought it was good for a week or two, and then same thing, coolant back in the oil. So the most likely candidate is the head gasket. I mean, there could be other problems, which I'm really hoping is not the case. This will be a pretty big job for me. I've never done anything quite this extreme, so it's going to test my skills. I'm going to start it today. I figure the tractor's going to be in the shop for at least a week. I got to work around my work schedule. So we'll see how far we get today. I got to strip down a lot of the parts off the motor, drain the oil, drain the coolant, strip down, get the generator off, get a lot of the wiring out of the way, that kind of stuff. Pull off the valve cover. The valve train has to come off. That's kind of freaking me out the most, but I don't know. We'll see how it goes. Hopefully it's not that complicated. And then, yeah, the studs come out and the cylinder head lifts off. I'm not going to take the manifold off. I will have to unbolt it from the muffler, and that is going to be a gnarly job because those bolts look like they've been there for 1,000 years. But I'm not going to touch the manifold. The guy at the dealership recommended that if I don't have to remove the manifold, not to. He said those studs would probably snap off, and I would tend to agree. So my hope is that we pull off the cylinder head and that the gasket is clearly blown out. And I got a new gasket. We're going to throw that on. I've got a new temperature sending unit to go on. Oil change, fluid change, and we should be back in business. At least that's the plan. Okay, first thing I'm going to do while I'm letting it cool down is I'm going to label these spark plug wires. They're actually already kind of labeled. I can just drop a diagram. I'm notorious for not being able to put these back on in the right order. It's caused me grief in the past, so I'm going to try to be extra careful. And I'm going to start pulling off some of these other electrical components that need to come out of the way. So once we get that done, I'll move on to draining the coolant and the oil. So we're just going to pop the carburetor off. We're thinking we can leave the choke and accelerator cables on and then just move the carburetor up and out of the way. But there's a linkage here for the governor that has to come off. And I'm just working on all this wiring. There's wiring for the headlights and wiring that goes to the generator and voltage regulator, the coil. I'm going to move the coil out of the way. So all this wiring's got to come out of the way. So we're just heating up the exhaust manifold. The 3 bolts that hold it on are seized in there pretty bad, so just giving it some heat. Well, we got the manifold disconnected from the muffler end of things. Problem is only one bolt came out. We snapped the other 2 off. One of them is partially, like it's almost out, and then the thread's kind of bound up and it snapped off, and the other one snapped off about halfway in, so we'll have to deal with that, but it's fine, it's off for now. Just draining the coolant now. There's 2 points on this tractor. There's a drain right below the rad, and there's another one on the engine block underneath the manifold right there. So I just took off the mounting bracket for the generator, and now we're working on these top bolts here. There's two, and I'm pretty sure that's all that holds the valve cover on. There might be a couple other bolts on the other side, we'll see. Okay, so we just got the water pump off, and unfortunately we broke that bottom bolt, so we're gonna have to deal with that. Now we're just taking the valve cover off. Just a matter of, I think, of prying it up.
No, but I'm thinking. Oh, that's heavier than it looks, son. Oh, tabarnak.
There we go. Okay, so now we just gotta decipher this, I don't know what you would call this, the valve train. I don't know. I think it just comes off with two bolts in one piece. And then we have to make sure that we label, and these push rods go back in the exact same place that they came out. So we'll come up with a system to deal with that after we try to figure out how we get this off. Okay, so we think these three bolts, they're two nuts on the end, and this gigantic bolt came out of the middle here, and there is a really funky smell coming out of that hole or this motor. If that's good or bad.
Good or better? Better, good.
So it should just lift right up and off.
Ah, shit.
That's bad.
Well, the good news is you got a video, so.
So there are the push rods. We just used the box, made a diagram. That's the front. 4, 3, 2, 1, and these are the position they came out in. So we'll be able to return them to the correct place. We tried to lift off the valve train, and not knowing exactly how it came apart. Apparently it wasn't one solid piece. It was split in the center, and of course it was under spring tension, so as we lifted it off, it basically exploded. So these lifters, we don't know what exact position they came from, so we'll have to deal with that when we put it back together. I'm hoping that they can just go into any sort of position, and we're just going to readjust the valve clearance anyways, so hopefully that'll be fine, because there's no way of knowing. These aren't marked in any way, and there's just no way to know what order they were stacked on. But I mean, we didn't lose any pieces. We got a good idea of how it goes back together, so it shouldn't be that big a deal. So the shop manual doesn't mention anything about this, but there are two bolts that go into the cylinder head that hold this firewall in place, and we just noticed it at the last minute. They got to come off. So that whole plate has to come off. We had to move the battery out of there. So we'll get that done. We have all the cylinder head bolts are out, and just so we go back in the same position, I made a little diagram. I'm actually going to call the case dealer tomorrow and see if we can actually reuse these, because I know in some cases when they get torqued down they stretch out and you're not supposed to reuse them. So I'll find that out tomorrow. Okay, that's the head lifted off. I don't see any obvious problem areas except maybe in the middle here, right there. But we're going to clean it up and then inspect it a little bit better. Okay, so it's the next day. This morning I went out to the case dealer and just to inquire about some parts. Mainly a gasket for the water pump to put it back onto the cylinder head. And I went and talked to the service manager, and I took the gasket, the head gasket, and I showed him, and I said, you know, I don't see anything obvious, but you know, I'm not that experienced, so maybe you might see something. And he looked at it and pretty much came to the same conclusion. He said it doesn't look like any coolant had been blowing by anywhere. He said the gasket as a whole looked like it had a good contact with the entire surface, and it didn't appear to have any problems. So that's bad news, because he went on to describe that the next most likely candidate is the sleeves and O-ring at the bottom of the sleeve. Each cylinder, I guess, has a sleeve which acts as kind of a buffer between the area where the coolant flows. And at the bottom of the engine block, where the crankcase is, there is a seal, like an O-ring is how he described it. And he said sometimes those fail, or the sleeve itself at the bottom will crack, and that is where you get your coolant leak. So I asked him, hey, what's a quote on, doing this work? And he kind of chuckled and said, well, I haven't worked on a gas tractor for like 17 years or something, is what he said. He's like, we only work on diesels. And that was at the Case dealership. And basically sent me on my merry way. He was helpful in describing the process. He quoted it at 30 hours of labor roughly, and then said he'd have to do some more research, but basically refused to take the job because, they just don't do it in their shop. And not that I'm saying I'm going to put 30 hours of labor into this thing at a shop, because that'd be astronomically expensive, thousands and thousands of dollars plus parts. So driving home down the country roads, I seen a couple of tractors parked in front of a shop and pulled in there. Went in and talked to the guy there, and he was pretty helpful. He looked at the gasket and the cylinder head that I had in the trunk, and he looked at the combustion chambers and said, well, it doesn't look like any coolant's been getting on the top end. Doesn't look like the gasket is the problem. So he confirmed what the guy at the dealership said. And then he went on to describe, it could be the sleeves, it could be a crack in the engine block, it could be a crack in the head. More than likely it's the sleeves. And what he said basically was like, yeah, it's 20 plus hours of shop time. He said if you're gonna pull the bottom end of this thing out, he would want to replace all the bearings in the crank and all the the rings on the pistons, do the whole, basically rebuild the engine. And he recommended maybe trying to find a used engine, and he gave me a couple phone numbers. I am going to pursue that, but I feel like the tractor's probably done for, unfortunately. I don't know if I got 6 or 7 years out of this tractor. I feel like I got my money's worth. It would have been nice if she lasted a little longer. And it's not to say another guy couldn't bring this thing back to life. And I might even pursue that myself. I'm going to start doing some research, and I have some different options. I could pull the pan and look at these sleeves and maybe look at replacing the sleeves and the rings. But the guy at the second shop, he's described the fact that these sleeves may or may not come out easily, and I just have no clue what I'm doing. So I don't know, so I might be able to do it, I might not. I don't know at this point, but I thought I'd finish this video and actually publish it. I started off making the video as just a, oh, this is the cylinder head, we're going to change the head gasket, and it's a kind of how-to video. And now it's my tractor's dead video. I'm going to look at maybe trying to do the work myself as an option. I'm going to look into used motor, but I mean, I feel like the likelihood of finding a used motor slim to none. This tractor's from like 73, 74, and just not likely I'm going to find a motor. I don't think the gas version was that popular. So if I end up giving up on it, I'm going to scrap it. And I think the loader has got some intrinsic value. The tires and a lot of parts on here are probably worth something. Sorry about that, just had some commotion out in front with the dogs. Anyways, I might do another video on this as I go and see what happens, if I end up repairing it, trying it. Another option is to throw the head back on it and just keep changing the oil and just drive it until it friggin' explodes. I mean, with that oil being contaminated pretty quickly, and then you run this motor, it's gonna fry it, right? But that's an option. See how much life I can get out of it. But the real problem, and I'm not stressing over it, but the real problem is, I mean, it's May. I figured I had a month or so to get this thing fixed up, and then I could start mowing and doing that kind of stuff with it. I mean, really what ends up happening is summertime I can get away with not having the tractor, but once fall hits, I need it to deal with the round bales. I usually order 30 to 40 round bales, and I gotta offload them, put them in the barn, and then all winter long I need the tractor to feed the horses to take the bales out. That's the only thing I really need it for. I mean, of course I do so much more with this thing: spread gravel, haul wood, mowing, a huge amount of mowing. I got about 4 or 5 acres of field that I mow up and use the brush hog on. But that's all stuff that I can get away with not doing. But ultimately I'm going to need to replace this tractor or have it repaired by October or November. So that's the dilemma. So do I go buy another used tractor for spend another 5-6 grand on a used tractor? Do I go to Case and buy something new? I don't know yet, but we will see. I will maybe do an update video on this as we go, but unfortunately it is what it is. Life happens. Anyways, thanks for watching. Leave a comment below if you know anything about 1970s international tractors. Certainly leave a comment below. But thanks for watching.